Most brides wake up the morning after their wedding feeling loved. I woke up to an ambush. Less than 24 hours after I said, "I do," my mother-in-law, Celeste Westbrook, walked into my kitchen. She didn't bring a wedding gift. She brought a stranger in a gray suit, a notary. She slapped a thick stack of papers onto the kitchen counter. Then, she uncapped a heavy black pen and held it out to me. "Sign it, Zoe," she said. Her voice wasn't sweet anymore. It was cold. "Sign over everything your grandfather left you. It's best for the family." My husband Dean stood in the corner. He didn't look at me. He just watched the pen. They looked at me and saw a quiet girl. They saw someone poor. They saw a victim they could bully. But they made a fatal mistake. They didn't know that the poor girl they were trying to rob was actually the secret owner of a company worth $16.9 million. They thought they were setting a trap for me. They had no idea they were walking right into mine. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? To understand why I didn't say anything that morning in the kitchen, you have to understand who I was before I met Dean. I was always the invisible one. In my family, loud voices won. My cousins were loud. My aunts were loud. Everyone had an opinion, and everyone wanted to be the center of attention. I was different. I was quiet. I liked to sit in the corner and listen. I liked to watch how people moved and how they looked when they thought no one was watching. Because I was quiet, my family thought I was slow. They thought I had no ambition. "Zoe is just happy to be here," my mother would say at dinner parties. She would pat my hand like I was a pet. "She doesn't need much." She made it sound like a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a dismissal. It meant, Zoe isn't important. Zoe won't achieve anything big. Zoe is safe to ignore. I grew up believing them. I wore plain clothes. I didn't raise my hand in class even when I knew the answer. I made myself small so I wouldn't take up space. I thought that if I stayed out of the way, I wouldn't get hurt. But there was one person who saw me. My grandfather, Henry Thornwright. He was a big man with rough hands. He had started with a single gas station and built it into a manufacturing empire. He made parts for engines, big machines, and industrial tools. He was rich, but he never acted like it. He drove an old truck. He wore flannel shirts. And he hated loud people. He hated the way the rest of the family scrambled for his money. He saw them fighting over who would sit next to him at Thanksgiving. He saw them asking for loans that they never paid back. He saw me sitting in the corner, reading a book. One summer when I was 19, he found me sitting on the porch. "Zoe," he said. His voice was deep like gravel. "Why are you sitting out here?" "It's too loud inside, Grandpa," I said. He nodded. He sat down next to me. The wood of the porch creaked. "You listen more than you talk," he said. "That's a rare skill. Most people talk because they love the sound of their own voice. You listen because you want to understand." That was the first time anyone had told me that my silence was a strength, not a weakness. From that day on, he took me under his wing, but he did it secretly. He didn't want the others to get jealous. He didn't want my cousins to attack me. Every Tuesday, I told my parents I was going to the library. Instead, I went to his office at the factory. He taught me everything. He didn't teach me from a textbook. He taught me from real life. He showed me the ledgers. He showed me how to read a profit and loss statement. He showed me how to spot when a supplier was lying about costs. "Look at this invoice, Zoe," he said one afternoon. He pointed a thick finger at a piece of paper. "What do you see?" I looked at the numbers. They looked normal. But then I compared them to the month before. "The shipping cost is up 4%, I said. "But gas prices are down," he smiled. It was a small smile, but it made me feel 10 feet tall. "Exactly," he said. "They think we won't notice. They think we're just writing checks. Never just write the check, Zoe. Always look at the details." We did this for 5 years. I went to college, but my real education was in that dusty office with Henry. I learned how to negotiate. I learned how to manage people. I learned that business isn't about money, it's about leverage. Then, 2 years ago, he got sick. It happened fast. One day he was at the factory, and the next day he was in a hospital bed. The doctors said it was his heart. He didn't have much time. The whole family descended on the hospital. They brought flowers and balloons. They cried loud, fake tears. They hovered around the bed, trying to get his attention. They were already thinking about the will. I could see it in their eyes. They were calculating. I stood in the back, just like always. I felt like my heart was breaking, but I didn't make a scene. I just watched him fade. On his last night, he asked everyone to leave. "Get out," he wheezed. "All of you. I need to sleep." My aunts and uncles looked offended, but they left. They filed out into the hallway, already arguing about who would get the lake house. I turned to leave too. Not you, Zoe, he whispered. I froze. I turned back. He was looking at me. His eyes were tired, but they were clear. Come here, he said. I walked to the side of the bed and took his hand. It felt cold and dry. I have something for you, he said. I don't want anything, Grandpa, I said. Tears started to sting my eyes. I just want you to be okay. I know, he said. That's why you're the only one I can trust. He reached under his pillow and pulled out a key. Go to my attorney, Mr. Ellison, tomorrow morning. Don't tell your mother, don't tell your cousins, just go. Why? I asked. He squeezed my hand. I'm leaving it to you, Zoe, all of it, the company, the land, the patents, I gasped. Grandpa, I can't, the family will hate me. They'll destroy me. They can't destroy what they can't see, he said. His voice got very serious. That's the condition, Zoe, you have to promise me. Promise what? Silence, he said. I have set it up in a blind trust. No one will know you own it. Mr. Ellison will handle the paperwork. To the rest of the world, and to this family, the company will look like it's being run by a board of directors. But you will be the one making the decisions. You will be the owner. He pulled me closer. Don't reveal what is sacred until you know who is safe, he whispered. People get ugly when money is involved. Even people you love, especially people you love. I promise, I said. He died 3 hours later. The funeral was a circus. My family cried and wailed. Then came the reading of the public will. Grandpa Henry left small amounts of cash to everyone. He left the house to my aunt. He left the cars to my cousins. But for the company, the big prize, the source of all the money, the will said, control of Thornwright Industries is transferred to the Thornwright Trust, managed by independent executors. My family was furious. They screamed at Mr. Ellison. They wanted to know who the executors were. They wanted to sue, but Mr. Ellison just smiled and said it was ironclad. They never looked at me. I was sitting in the back, wearing a black dress, looking at the floor. They thought I got nothing. They thought I was just poor, quiet Zoe. They didn't know that the Thornwright Trust was just a fancy name for me. For 2 years, I lived a double life. By day, I worked a simple administrative job at a nonprofit. I drove a used Honda. I lived in a small apartment. I wore simple clothes. But at night, and on my lunch breaks, I was running a $16.9 million company. I was on secure video calls with the operations lead, Jenna. I was approving budgets. I was directing strategy. It was exhausting, but it was also empowering. I had a secret power. I knew I wasn't useless. I knew I was capable. Then I met Dean. I met him at a coffee shop. He bumped into me and spilled my latte. He was so apologetic. He had a nice smile and kind eyes. He bought me a new coffee and sat down to talk. He seemed different from my family. He listened to me. He asked me questions about my day. He didn't interrupt. We started dating. It felt like a fairy tale. For the first time, someone chose me. Not because of my grandfather, not because of what I could do for them, but just for me. I fell in love hard, but I remembered my grandfather's promise. Don't reveal what is sacred until you know who is safe. I wanted to tell Dean. There were so many times I almost did. When we were looking at apartments and he worried about the rent, I wanted to say, Dean, I can buy this whole building. When his car broke down and he was stressed about the repair bill, I wanted to say, let me fix it. But I stopped myself. I needed to be sure. I needed to know that he loved Zoe, the person, not Zoe, the heiress. So I kept playing the role of the poor, simple girl. He proposed to me under a big oak tree in the park. It was simple and perfect. The ring wasn't big, but I loved it. I don't have much to offer you, Zoe, he said, holding my hand. But I promised to take care of you. I promised to protect you. I believed him. I really did. I met his mother, Celeste, a month later. Celeste Westbrook was a woman who wore pearls to the grocery store. She lived in a house that looked like a museum. Everything was white and nothing could be touched. When Dean introduced us, she looked me up and down like she was inspecting a piece of furniture she didn't want to buy. So, she said, sipping her tea, Dean tells me you work for a charity. That must be fulfilling. But it doesn't pay much, does it? I get by, I said quietly. And your family, she asked. I heard your grandfather was successful. He passed away, I said. The money is in a trust. Her eyes narrowed. A trust. So you don't have access to it? No, I lied. I don't. I saw the disappointment on her face. She lost interest in me immediately. To her, I was just a burden Dean was taking on. A nobody. But Dean defended me. Mom, stop, he said. I love her, that's all that matters. That moment convinced me to marry him. He stood up to her. He chose me. I thought I was safe. I thought the test was over. I was wrong. As the wedding got closer, things started to change. It was subtle at first. Small comments. Dean started asking more questions about my grandfather's will. Are you sure there isn't anything left for you? He asked one night over dinner. It seems unfair that he left you with nothing. I have my memories, I said. Memories don't pay for a house, he muttered. I felt a little chill, but I brushed it off. Weddings are stressful. Money is stressful. Then Celeste got involved in the planning. She took over everything. She changed the flowers. She changed the venue. She didn't ask me, she just did it. You can't afford what I want, Zoe, she said. So let me pay and let me choose. I let her. I just wanted to be married to Dean. I wanted to start our life together. But I should have been watching closer. I should have used the eyes my grandfather trained. I was walking into a trap, and I was doing it with a smile on my face. The day of the wedding was beautiful. The sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. The air was warm. It looked like the happiest day of my life. But from the moment I woke up, my stomach felt tight. I was in the bridal suite at the hotel. My dress was hanging on the door. It was a simple dress, white lace, very elegant. I had bought it myself with my savings. Celeste walked in without knocking. She was wearing a silver dress that was almost white. It was flashy. It was tight. She looked more like the bride than I did. You're not ready, she snapped. The photographer is downstairs. I have 2 hours, Celeste, I said calmly. She walked around the room, touching my things. She picked up my purse. She picked up my shoes. She was looking for something. I didn't know what, but her eyes were darting everywhere. Dean is very nervous, she said. He wants everything to be perfect. I'm sure he is, I said. She stopped and looked at me. You know, Zoe, marriage is a partnership. It's about sharing everything. Secrets destroy marriages. I froze while putting on my earring. I don't have secrets, I said. It was a lie, but a necessary one. We'll see, she said. She turned and walked out, but she left the door open. It felt like a threat. I got dressed. I looked in the mirror. I saw a woman who looked calm, but inside my heart was racing. I remembered Grandpa Henry's voice. Don't reveal what is sacred. I walked down the aisle. The ceremony was in a garden. There were white chairs and white roses everywhere. I saw Dean standing at the altar. He looked handsome in his tuxedo. He smiled when he saw me, and for a second my fear went away. This was Dean, my Dean. But as I got closer, I saw his eyes. They weren't looking at my face. They were scanning the crowd. He looked distracted. He looked sweaty. I reached the altar and took his hands. His palms were damp. The priest started speaking. We are gathered here today. I looked past Dean to the front row. Celeste was sitting there. She wasn't looking at the priest. She wasn't crying tears of joy. She was staring right at me. Her face was hard like stone. And then I saw it. Her purse was sitting on her lap. It was a silver clutch. It was open just a tiny bit. Sticking out of the purse was the silver cap of a pen. A thick, expensive pen. Who brings a pen to a wedding ceremony? Why would you need a pen during your son's vows? My grandfather's training kicked in. Look at the details, Zoe. A pen means a signature. A signature means a contract. A cold feeling washed over me. They weren't just here for a wedding. They were planning business, and I was the asset. Do you, Dean, take Zoe to be your lawfully wedded wife? The priest asked. Dean hesitated. It was only for a second, but I felt it. He looked at his mother. Celeste gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. I do, Dean said. And do you, Zoe? I looked at the pen in the purse. I looked at Dean's sweaty face. I looked at Celeste's cold eyes. I almost ran. Everything in my body told me to run. But I didn't. If I ran now, I would never know the truth. If I ran, I would look like the crazy one. I had to stay. I had to see this through. I had to be smart. I do, I said. My voice was steady. The priest pronounced us husband and wife. Dean kissed me. It felt practiced. It felt like he was performing for an audience. As we walked back down the aisle, the guests clapped, but I heard the whispers. She's lucky, one woman whispered. Dean is such a catch. I heard her family has money, but she doesn't, a man said. Dean's going to have to support her. Maybe that's why the mother is so tense, another voice said. Prenup. I kept smiling. I held Dean's hand tight. But I wasn't holding on for love anymore. I was holding on to keep my balance. The reception was a blur. People toasted us. They drank champagne. Celeste gave a speech. She stood up with a microphone, holding her glass high. To my son, Dean, she said. And to Zoe. She said my name like it was an afterthought. Dean has always been generous, she told the crowd. He has a big heart. He takes in stray dogs. He helps people who need help. And now he has taken in Zoe. The room went quiet for a second. It was an insult wrapped in a compliment. She was calling me a stray dog. Dean laughed. He actually laughed. I sat there, frozen. I squeezed the stem of my wine glass so hard I thought it would shatter. Welcome to the family, Zoe, Celeste said, raising her glass. We have big plans for you. Big plans. I knew what that meant now. I thought about the pen. Later that night, we went back to the house. It was Dean's house, but we had agreed I would move in. I was exhausted. I just wanted to take off my dress and sleep. That was a great party, Dean said, loosening his tie. He seemed relieved that it was over. Your mother's speech was interesting, I said carefully. Oh, you know Mom, Dean said, waving his hand. She's just protective, she loves you. Does she? I asked. Of course, he said. He walked over and kissed my forehead. You're my wife now, Zoe, you're a Westbrook, we're a team. A team, I repeated. We share everything, he said. Right. He looked at me with those intense eyes again. He was searching for something. Right, I whispered. He went to the bathroom to shower. I sat on the edge of the bed. I looked at my suitcase in the corner. I had packed my clothes, my toiletries, and a few books. But hidden in the lining of my suitcase, stitched behind the fabric where no one would find it, was a small USB drive. It contained everything: the digital keys to the Thornwright Trust, the access codes to the bank accounts, the legal documents that proved I owned the company. I touched the spot on the suitcase. It was still there. They thought I was trapped in this house with them. They thought I was alone, but I had my grandfather's ghost with me. And I had $16.9 million worth of armor that they couldn't see. I laid down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I waited. I knew the morning would bring the storm. I knew Celeste would come back with that pen. I was ready. The sun came up the next morning. It was bright and cheerful, but inside the house the air felt heavy. I was in the kitchen making coffee. I was wearing my pajamas. I wanted a slow, easy morning with my new husband. Dean was sitting at the table. He was fully dressed. He was wearing a button-down shirt and slacks. He looked nervous. He kept checking his watch. Are we going somewhere? I asked. No, he said too quickly. Just, Mom is stopping by. To say hello. My stomach dropped. At 8 a.m. on the day after our wedding, before he could answer, the front door opened. Celeste didn't knock. She had a key. She walked into the kitchen. She was wearing a sharp gray suit. Her hair was perfect. She didn't look like a mother visiting her son. She looked like a shark entering the water. Behind her was a man I didn't know. He was short, balding, and carried a leather briefcase. Good morning, Celeste said. She didn't smile. Who is this? I asked, pulling my robe tighter around me. This is Mark Riley, she said. He is the family notary. He's here to help us with some paperwork. Mark nodded at me. He didn't look me in the eye. He set his briefcase on the kitchen island and opened it. He pulled out a thick document. Paperwork? I asked. Celeste, we got married yesterday. Can't this wait? Financial security can't wait, she said. She picked up the document and held it out to me. This is for your protection, Zoe. Dean signs one and you sign one. It's standard in our family. I looked at the top of the page. In big bold letters it said, Durable Power of Attorney. I knew what that meant. My grandfather had taught me. If I signed this, I was giving someone else the legal right to act as me. They could access my bank accounts. They could sell my property. They could sign contracts in my name. They could do anything. Why do I need this? I asked. I tried to keep my voice calm. Because you're part of the Westbrook estate now, Celeste said smoothly. We handle all the assets together. This just allows Dean to manage the day-to-day bills and legal matters for you, so you don't have to worry your pretty little head about it. She uncapped the black pen. It made a loud click in the quiet kitchen. She held it out to me. Just sign here, sweetheart, she said. At the bottom, I looked at Dean. Did you sign one? Yes, he said. I signed it this morning. Let me see it, I said. Dean froze. He looked at his mother. Celeste's eyes flashed with anger. Zoe, Celeste said, her voice dropping an octave. We are trying to help you. You come from humble beginnings. You don't understand how complex our finances are. This protects you. It gives you total control over me, I said. It gives your husband control, she corrected. And you trust your husband, don't you? It was a trap. If I said no, I was a bad wife. If I said yes, I had to sign. I took the paper. I pretended to read it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I needed an exit. I trust Dean, I said, but my grandfather made me promise something. Your grandfather is dead, Celeste snapped. His lawyer isn't, I said. I set the paper down on the counter. I promised him I would never sign any legal document without Mr. Ellison reviewing it first. The room went dead silent. Celeste's face turned red. Mr. Ellison, that old fool. You don't need him, we have lawyers. I made a promise, I said. I looked at Dean. You understand, right? It's about honoring the dead. Dean looked trapped between his mother and me. Maybe she can just have him look at it, Mom. It won't hurt. Celeste turned on him. Dean. Then she turned back to me. She snatched the paper off the counter. Fine, she spat. If you want to be difficult, if you want to start our relationship with distrust, that is your choice. She motioned to Mark, the notary. He quickly packed up his bag. We will discuss this later, she said. When you are being more reasonable. They left. The door slammed shut. I stood there, shaking. Dean stood up. He looked angry. Why did you do that, Zoe? You embarrassed me. Embarrassed you? I asked. Dean, she wanted me to sign over my legal rights. Why didn't you tell me she was coming? I just wanted it handled, he shouted. I just wanted peace. He stormed out of the room. That was the first crack. Over the next few weeks, the house became a battlefield, but it was a silent war. Celeste didn't bring the papers back immediately. Instead, she started small attacks. First, the wedding gifts disappeared. We had received checks from guests, probably totaling around $5,000. I put them in a drawer in the kitchen. 2 days later, they were gone. Dean, where are the checks? I asked. Mom took them to the bank, he said, not looking up from his phone. She deposited them in the family account. The family account? I asked. Dean, those were for us, for our savings. It's all the same pot, Zoe, he said. Stop being so greedy. Greedy. They were stealing from me and they called me greedy. Then, events were cancelled. I had planned a small dinner for my friends. Celeste called the caterer and cancelled it. She told them I was sick. When I confronted her, she smiled. Oh, I just thought you looked tired, dear. I was saving you the stress. She moved things in the house. My books were moved to the basement. My clothes were rearranged in the closet. It was psychological warfare. She was telling me, this is not your house. You are a guest here, and Dean let it happen. Whenever I complained, he dismissed me. You're overreacting, he would say. She's just trying to help. I realized then that Dean wasn't just a victim of his mother. He was weak. And because he was weak, he was dangerous. I stopped arguing. I stopped complaining. I went quiet. I'm sorry, Dean, I said one night. You're right, I've been stressed. He smiled. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. But I wasn't broken. I was recording. I bought a small voice recorder. I kept it in my pocket. Every time Celeste came over, I turned it on. I started taking photos of documents Dean left on his desk. I started tracking his phone calls. I was building a file. I was a spy in my own marriage. They thought silence was submission. They didn't know that silence is where the best traps are built. I needed a place to work where they couldn't see me. I told Dean I was volunteering at the library 3 days a week. He didn't care. As long as I wasn't at the house, causing trouble with his mother, he was happy. But I wasn't at the library. I rented a small desk at a co-working space downtown. I paid in cash so it wouldn't show up on any bank statement. This was my war room. I sat there with my laptop, a stack of legal pads, and a strong cup of coffee. I had access to all the expensive databases my grandfather used to use. I had LexisNexis. I had property record search engines. I started digging into the Westbrook family. I knew they had money, but I didn't know where it came from. Celeste always acted like they were old money, like royalty. I searched Celeste Westbrook. Nothing much. A few charity boards, a speeding ticket. I searched Dean Westbrook. Again, not much. He had a job as a consultant, but I never really saw him work. Then I started looking at their assets. The house we lived in. The cars. I found something strange. The house wasn't in Dean's name. It wasn't in Celeste's name. It was owned by an LLC called C Advisory. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. I searched the state business registry for C Advisory LLC. The results popped up on my screen. Entity name, C Advisory LLC. Filing date, June 14, 2025. My breath caught in my throat. June 14th. That was 2 months before our wedding. I scrolled down to see the officers. Manager, Celeste Westbrook. Manager, Dean Westbrook. Dean was a manager. He knew about this company. I looked at the purpose of business line. Usually, people write something vague like general business. This one said, Business Asset Transition Services. Asset transition. That's fancy lawyer talk for moving money from one person to another. They had formed a company specifically to move assets right before marrying me. I sat back in my chair. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. This was a conspiracy. Dean was in on it. He had signed the papers to create this company while we were picking out wedding cake. I needed to see if they were using it yet. I logged into our joint bank account. This was the account where Dean deposited his paycheck and where I put my small salary from the nonprofit. It was supposed to be for groceries and bills. I looked at the transaction history. Grocery store, $150. Gas station, $60. Electric bill, $200, then I saw it. Transfer to external act ending in 4490, $18,000. The date was yesterday. $18,000. That was almost all the money in the account. It was the money I had saved for years before I met Dean. I felt sick. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I printed the page. I highlighted the transaction. I drove home. I needed to know the truth. I needed to look Dean in the eye. That night we were eating dinner. It was quiet. The only sound was the clinking of forks on plates. "Dean," I said. Yeah, he was eating pasta, not looking at me. "I tried to use the debit card today to buy gas," I lied. "It was declined." He stopped chewing. He didn't look up immediately. He took a sip of water. "That's weird," he said. "I checked the app," I said. "There's an $18,000 transfer. Where did that go?" He finally looked at me. His face was perfectly calm. It was scary how calm he was. "Oh, that," he said. "I moved it to an investment account. A friend of mine has a great opportunity. High yield. I wanted to surprise you with the returns." "An investment?" I asked. Without asking me, "That's our savings, Dean. It's our future," he said. He reached across the table and took my hand. His hand felt clammy. "Zoe, you have to trust me. I know about finance. I'm trying to build wealth for us." "What's the name of the investment firm?" I asked. He hesitated. Just for a split second. "It's a private fund. You wouldn't know them." "Is it C Advisory?" I asked. His face went pale. The color drained right out of him. He pulled his hand back. "How do you know that name?" he whispered. "I saw it on a piece of mail." I lied again. He relaxed a little. Yes, that's the one. It's my mom's financial advisor. She's helping us invest." He was lying. He was lying right to my face. "He stole my money, gave it to a company he owned with his mother, and called it an investment." "Okay," I said. "That sounds great, Dean." I stood up and cleared my plate. "You're not mad?" he asked, surprised. "No," I said, turning my back to him so he couldn't see my eyes. "I trust you." I walked into the kitchen and started washing dishes. The water was hot on my hands. Inside, I was screaming, but on the outside, I was silent. The next morning, I went back to the co-working space. I didn't cry. I didn't mope. I went to work. If they wanted a war of assets, I would give them one, but I had a nuclear weapon they didn't know about. I called Jenna Harlow, my operations lead. "Jenna," I said, "initiate protocol ghost." "Are you sure, Zoe?" Jenna asked. She sounded worried. "Yes, they just stole $18,000 from me. They are coming for everything." "Understood," Jenna said. "I want $2.4 million moved from the main holding account into Shiloh Holdings LLC, I commanded. "Do it today." Wire transfer. Shiloh Holdings was my secret safety net. It was a shell company I had set up years ago, hidden under layers of anonymity. "Done," Jenna said. "And Jenna?" "Yes. Send the security team to my house tomorrow while Dean is at work. I need cameras installed, tiny ones, in the vents, in the living room, in the office." "We can do that," she said. "What's the goal?" "Evidence," I said. "I'm going to let them try to rob me. I'm going to let them think they are winning. And I'm going to get every single lie on tape." I hung up the phone. I looked at the screen. My bank account balance showed $0, but my real balance, the one they couldn't see, was safe. Dean thought he was playing a game with a naive girl. He didn't realize he was playing chess with a grandmaster. I closed my laptop. It was time to go home and play the loving wife. They didn't wait long for the second attack. It happened 3 days after I found out about the stolen $18,000. It was a Tuesday evening. It was raining hard against the windows. The house felt cold, even though the heat was on. Dean came home early from work. He was acting strange. He was too nice. He brought flowers, cheap ones from the grocery store wrapped in plastic. He cooked dinner, which he never did. He made spaghetti, but the sauce was watery. "I wanted to do something nice for you," he said, pouring me a glass of wine. "I know things have been tense." I looked at the flowers. I looked at the wine. I knew this wasn't love, this was bait. "Thank you, Dean," I said. I took a sip of the wine, but I didn't swallow it. I wasn't going to let my guard down. We ate in silence. Dean kept checking his phone under the table. "Is someone coming over?" I asked. "What? No," he said, too quickly. "Why would you ask that?" Just then, headlights flashed in the driveway. A car door slammed. Dean stood up. He didn't look surprised. The front door opened. It was Celeste. And behind her, shaking his umbrella, was Mark Riley, the notary. Again. My stomach turned into a knot. They were relentless. "Dessert," Celeste announced. She was holding a bakery box. "I brought cannoli." She walked into the dining room and set the box down. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask how I was. She looked at Mark and nodded. Mark pulled a document out of his briefcase. It was blue. What is this? I asked. I didn't stand up. I kept my hands in my lap so they wouldn't see them shaking. It's about your old house, Celeste said. Before I moved in with Dean, I lived in a small, 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of town. It was the only property my family knew I owned. It wasn't worth much, maybe $150,000 on a good day. They thought it was my only asset. What about my house? I asked. Dean and I have been talking, Celeste said, pulling out a chair and sitting down. The market is crashing, Zoe. That little house of yours is losing value every day. It's a liability. It's paid off, I said. It's not a liability. It is if you don't know how to manage it, Dean cut in. We want to help you. We can roll that house into the family portfolio. We can use the equity to make better investments for us. Mark slid the blue document across the table. I looked at it. Quitclaim deed. I knew what this was. If I signed this, I was legally giving up my ownership of the house. I was transferring it to Dean Westbrook and Celeste Westbrook. They weren't even hiding it. They wanted to take my house, put their names on it, and likely take out a loan against it. I don't want to sell it, I said. We aren't selling it, Celeste said, her voice getting sharp. We are managing it. Dean is your husband. What belongs to you belongs to him. Why are you being so selfish? Selfish? I asked. It's the roof over my head if anything happens. If what happens? Dean asked. His eyes went dark. Are you planning on leaving me, Zoe? The room went silent. The threat hung in the air. He was twisting my words. He was making me the bad guy. No, I whispered. Then sign the paper, Dean said. Prove that you're committed to this marriage. Prove that you trust me. The pressure was suffocating. Celeste was glaring at me. Dean looked disappointed. The notary was tapping his pen on the table, waiting. I reached out and took the document. Celeste smiled. It was a predatory smile. She thought she had won. I folded the document in half. Then I folded it again. I'll think about it, I said. Celeste's smile dropped. What? I said I'll think about it, I repeated. I need to read it over. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly. You can't just take that, Celeste shouted. She stood up too. That is a legal document prepared at my expense. And it's my house, I said. Good night, Celeste. Good night, Mark. I walked out of the dining room. I expected Dean to grab my arm. I expected him to stop me, but he didn't. He was too shocked. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. I could hear them arguing downstairs. She's impossible, Celeste screamed. I'll handle her, Dean said. Give me time. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, clutching the folded paper. The next morning, as soon as Dean left for work, I got in my car. I didn't go to the library. I drove 3 towns over to see Elijah Corbin. Elijah was a property lawyer my grandfather had used for decades. He was a sharp man with white hair and a bow tie. He knew everything about the Thornwright estate. I sat in his office and handed him the crumbled blue paper. They tried to make me sign this last night, I said. Elijah put on his glasses. He read the document. Then he started to chuckle. What's funny? I asked. Zoe, he said. Do they know that your little cottage is actually owned by the Thornwright Trust, not you personally? No, I said. They think the deed is in my name. If you had signed this, Elijah explained, taking off his glasses, you would have committed fraud. You can't give away what isn't technically yours. But here is the interesting part. He leaned forward. If they tried to file this deed, they would be claiming ownership of a trust asset. The Thornwright Trust has strict clauses about unauthorized transfers. If they try to take the title, the trust automatically triggers a lawsuit against them for theft. So, I started to smile. Signing it would be a trap. A huge trap, Elijah said, but we don't want to spring it just yet. We want them to dig a deeper hole. He handed the paper back to me. Keep stalling, Zoe. Tell them you're considering it. Tell them you need a few adjustments. Make them believe they're close to winning. People make mistakes when they think they are about to win. I can do that, I said. And Zoe? Elijah asked gently. Are you safe? I don't know, I admitted. We have the paperwork ready for the separation, he said. Whenever you are ready to push the button. Not yet, I said. I need to know how far they will go. I drove home feeling stronger. They wanted my house? Fine. I would use it as bait. The next week was a game of cat and mouse. I told Dean I was warming up to the idea of the house transfer. I asked him questions about investment strategies. I played the part of the dumb, eager wife. I just want to make sure we get the best interest rate, I said over breakfast. We will, Dean assured me, squeezing my hand. Mom knows all the bankers. While I played the dutiful wife at home, I was a spy at my office. The hidden cameras were live. Jenna, my operations lead, had sent a team disguised as HVAC repairmen. Dean had let them in himself, thinking they were fixing the air conditioning. They had installed tiny cameras in the living room smoke detector, the kitchen vent, and Dean's home office. I sat at my desk in the co-working space, watching the feeds on my laptop. It was boring at first. I watched Dean watch TV. I watched him eat a sandwich. But then, on a Thursday afternoon, I struck gold. I saw Dean pacing in the living room. He was on the phone. He looked agitated. I turned up the volume on my headphones. "I know, Mom," Dean shouted into the phone. "Stop writing me, I'm working on it." He paused, listening to Celeste on the other end. "She's stupid, okay," Dean said. "She's naive, she believes everything I say. But she's stubborn about this house." My heart cracked a little. Hearing your husband call you stupid is a pain that doesn't go away, but I kept listening. "I'll get the signature by Friday," Dean said. "I'm going to plan a romantic dinner. Get her drunk if I have to. Once we have the house, we can use it as collateral for the business loan. Then we can finally dump her." I gasped. "Then we can finally dump her." He wasn't just using me for money. He was planning to discard me as soon as he got it. The marriage was a sham. Every "I love you" was a lie. Every kiss was a transaction. "Yeah," Dean said, laughing now. "She has no idea. She thinks we're soulmates. It's pathetic." He hung up the phone. I sat there in the dark office, staring at the screen. I felt tears running down my cheeks. I allowed myself to cry for exactly 5 minutes. I looked at the timer on my phone. 5 minutes to grieve the marriage I thought I had. 5 minutes to mourn the man I thought I loved. When the timer hit 0, I wiped my face. "Okay," I said to the empty room. "You want to play dirty? Let's play." I opened my safe in the office. I pulled out the thick binder my grandfather had left me, the Thornwright Trust Charter. I had read it 100 times, but I was looking for something specific. A clause Grandpa Henry had told me about on his deathbed. I flipped to page 45. Section 9, Protection Against Duress. It read, "In the event that the primary beneficiary, Zoe Thornwright, is under coercion, threat, or manipulation to liquidate assets, the beneficiary may file a statement of distress. Upon filing, all assets within the trust, including subsidiary holdings and personal property, will be immediately frozen. No transfers, no withdrawals, and no sales can occur without a court order." This was the kill switch. If I filed this, everything stopped. Even the assets Dean thought he controlled, like the joint account where I had deposited some trust dividends, would be locked. But I found something else, something even better. Section 10. The spousal exclusion. Any spouse of the beneficiary is explicitly excluded from any claim to trust assets unless a separate agreement is signed after 5 years of marriage. We had been married for 2 months. Dean had 0 claim. But he didn't know that. He thought because we were married, he owned half of everything. I needed to make my move, but I needed to do it perfectly. I called Elijah Corbin. "Elijah," I said, "I have the recording." "Is it enough?" he asked. "He admitted to fraud," I said. "He admitted to planning to coerce me. He admitted to planning to divorce me after he took the assets." "That's enough," Elijah said. His voice was grim. "What do you want to do?" "I want to file the amendment packet," I said, "and I want to trigger the freeze." "When?" "Tomorrow," I said. "He said he's going to try to force me to sign on Friday. I want the freeze to hit him before he even gets home." "It will be done," Elijah said. "I'll file at the courthouse at 9 a.m. sharp. By noon, every bank in the state will know that Dean Westbrook is a financial pariah." I hung up the phone. I watched the screen again. Dean was sitting on the couch now, relaxing. He looked so smug. He looked so confident. He had no idea that the stupid girl he married was about to destroy his entire world. I packed up my laptop. I drove home. When I walked through the door, Dean smiled at me. "Hey, beautiful," he said. "How was the library?" "It was enlightening," I said. I walked right past him. "I was thinking," he said, following me into the kitchen. "Maybe tomorrow night we have a special date. Just the two of us. I want to talk about our future." He was following the script I had heard on the tape. The romantic dinner. The trap. I turned around and looked him dead in the eye. "That sounds perfect, Dean," I said. "I can't wait to see what the future holds." He didn't see the ice in my eyes. He only saw what he wanted to see, a victim. I went upstairs to pack a bag, not a suitcase this time. Just a small gym bag. I put my passport, my hard drive, and my jewelry in it. I hid it in the back of the closet. I laid in bed that night next to the enemy. I listened to his breathing. It was steady and deep. He slept like a baby. I didn't sleep. I counted down the hours until 9 a.m. The awakening was over. The counterattack was about to begin. Friday morning arrived. This was the day Dean planned to trap me, but I was already awake. I dressed differently that morning. For months, I had worn soft cardigans and jeans. the quiet wife uniform. Today I put on a tailored black blazer and sharp heels. I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. Dean noticed. "You look professional," he said, eyeing me over his coffee cup. "I have a meeting," I said. "A career workshop." "Good for you," he said dismissively. "Don't be late for dinner tonight. 7 p.m. I'm cooking." "I wouldn't miss it," I said. I walked out the door. I didn't go to a career workshop. I drove straight to the gleaming glass tower in the city center where the Thornwright Trust had its headquarters. At 9 a.m., my attorney, Elijah Corbin, walked into the county courthouse. At 9:05 a.m., he filed the Statement of Distress and the Asset Protection Amendment. At 9:10 a.m., the digital freeze went into effect. I was sitting in the boardroom with Jenna and the rest of my grandfather's team. A large screen on the wall showed the status of our accounts. "The freeze is active," Jenna said. "All joint accounts associated with Zoe Thornwright are now locked. All credit inquiries are flagged." Now we waited. We didn't have to wait long. At 10:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dean. "Card declined at the liquor store. Embarrassing. Can you transfer $50? He was buying the wine for the trap dinner." I didn't reply. At 10:45 a.m., my phone rang. It was Dean. I let it go to voicemail. At 11:15 a.m., the GPS tracker on Dean's car showed him driving fast. He wasn't going to work. He was going to the bank. I imagined the scene. He would walk up to the teller, demanding to know why his investment money was frozen. Elijah called me from the courthouse. "He's here," Elijah said. "He just tried to file the durable power of attorney, the one you refused to sign. He forged your signature, Zoe," I gasped. "He forged it. Badly," Elijah said. "The clerk flagged it immediately because the account is already frozen. Dean is screaming at the clerk right now." "Let him scream," I said. "The clerk is informing him that the freeze was initiated by the primary beneficiary, Zoe Thornwright." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This was the moment. The moment the mask fell off. Dean now knew. He knew I wasn't the victim. He knew I was the one pulling the strings. My phone started blowing up. "Dean, 12 missed calls. Celeste, 5 missed calls. Dean, what did you do? Dean, answer me. Celeste, you ungrateful little brat. Call me now." I turned my phone off. "Jenna," I said. "Bring me the restructuring documents." Jenna slid a stack of papers across the mahogany table. These papers removed the anonymous board structure. They put my name, Zoe Thornwright, front and center, as the CEO and majority shareholder of Thornwright Industries. I picked up the pen. It was a heavy, expensive pen, just like the one Celeste tried to use on me. But this time I was the one holding it. I signed my name. "It's done," I said. "I own 81% of the voting stock. I control the real estate. I control the trust." "What about Dean?" Jenna asked. "Dean thinks he married a wealthy heiress," I said, standing up. "He's about to find out he married his boss." "His boss? C Advisory," I said. "The shell company Dean and Celeste set up. They funded it with a loan from a small regional bank." I smiled cold and hard. "We bought that bank last week," I said. "I own their debt. I can call in their loan tomorrow." The room went silent. They realized the extent of my plan. I hadn't just protected myself. I had surrounded them. I checked my watch. 5 p.m. "I have a dinner date," I said. I drove home. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the house. Dean's car was in the driveway. It was parked crooked, like he had slammed on the brakes. I unlocked the front door. The house was dark. The romantic dinner wasn't cooked. There were no candles. Dean was sitting at the dining room table. The forged power of attorney was crumpled in front of him. Celeste was pacing back and forth in the kitchen, holding a glass of scotch. When I walked in, the air in the room changed. It became electric. "You," Dean said. His voice was a low growl. He stood up slowly. "Who are you?" "I'm Zoe," I said calmly. "Your wife?" "My wife is a quiet, stupid girl from the country," Dean shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. "My wife doesn't have lawyers freezing my accounts. My wife doesn't own whatever this is." He waved a piece of paper. It was a printout of the Thornwright corporate structure. He must have found it online after the freeze alerted him. "I tried to tell you," I said. I stayed near the door. "I told you I had a trust. I told you I had a promise to keep." "You lied," Celeste screamed. She marched toward me. "You tricked us. You let us pay for the wedding. You let us buy you dinner, all while you were sitting on millions." "You didn't pay for the wedding because you loved me," I said, looking her in the eye. "You paid for it as an investment. You thought if you bought the wedding, you bought me." "We are family," Celeste yelled. "No," I said. "We are a business transaction to you, and the deal just went bad." I reached into my purse. I pulled out a small velvet pouch. I took out my wedding ring. It was a modest diamond. "Dean," I said, Do you remember what you said when you proposed? You said you wanted to protect me. Dean looked at the ring. His eyes were red. He looked exhausted and terrified. I did, he whispered. I did love you, Zoe. Maybe you did, I said, but you loved the money more. You were going to divorce me, Dean. I heard you. I heard the tape. His face went white. You recorded me. I heard you tell your mother that I was stupid, that you would take the house and dump me. I placed the ring on the table. It made a small clink sound. Love was real for me, Dean, I said. My voice cracked just a little, but your intentions weren't. Zoe, wait, he said. He started to come around the table. We can fix this. We can work this out, now that I know. Now that we are equals. We aren't equals, I said coldly. I am the majority shareholder. You are a liability. I turned to leave. You can't just leave, Celeste shrieked. We will sue you. We will take half. I stopped. I didn't turn around. Read the prenup, Celeste, I said. The one Grandpa Henry wrote 20 years ago. The spousal exclusion is ironclad. And since Dean tried to forge my signature today, well, that's a felony. If you sue me, I'll press charges. Silence. Total, heavy silence. I walked out the door. 2 days later, the process server handed Dean the divorce papers. He tried to fight it in court. He hired a loud, expensive lawyer. He tried to claim I had defrauded him by hiding my wealth, but the judge wasn't impressed. I sat in the courtroom, surrounded by my legal team. I wore a simple white dress. The judge looked at the evidence. He looked at the forged power of attorney. He listened to the tape of Dean calling me stupid. Mr. Westbrook, the judge said, looking over his glasses, you entered this marriage assuming your wife was helpless. You assumed you could exploit her. The fact that she was smarter than you is not grounds for a lawsuit. It is justice. The gavel banged. Judgment for the plaintiff, Zoe Thornwright. All assets remain sole property of the trust. Marriage dissolved. Dean walked out of the courtroom with his head down. He looked smaller. He looked like the weak man he always was. Celeste tried to keep up appearances, but the town talked. The story of the secret heiress got out. People knew she had tried to rob her own daughter-in-law. She was humiliated. She stopped going to her charity lunches. She faded away. I was free. 6 months later. I drove my old truck, the one I bought to replace the fancy car Dean wanted me to drive, out to the edge of town. I pulled into the parking lot of an old, abandoned gas station. The sign was rusted. The windows were boarded up. Weeds were growing through the concrete. This was where it started. This was the first business Henry Thornwright ever owned. I had bought it back from the bank quietly during the divorce. I unlocked the front door and walked in. It smelled like dust and old oil. I walked to the back wall, where there was a loose brick near the floor. My grandfather had shown it to me when I was a little girl. It was his hiding spot. I pulled the brick loose. Inside, there was a folded piece of yellow notebook paper. It had been there for years. I unfolded it. I recognized his shaky handwriting immediately. Zoe, if you are reading this, you have survived the storm. I knew it would come. Money changes people. It reveals who they really are. This money isn't an inheritance, Zoe. It's a mirror. It showed you who your family was. It showed you who your husband was. But most importantly, I hope it showed you who you are. You are not the quiet girl in the corner. You are the one who builds. Build something that reflects who you are. Love, Grandpa. I stood in the dusty gas station and cried. Not tears of sadness, but tears of release. I had been holding my breath for 2 years. Finally, I could exhale. He was right. The money had stripped away all the lies. I wiped my eyes and looked around the empty space. Build something, I whispered. I didn't turn the gas station back into a business. I didn't need more money. I turned it into a community center. We named it the Henry Project. We renovated it. We put in big glass windows. We filled it with books, computers, and comfortable chairs. It became a place for people who felt invisible. A place for the quiet kids. A place for women who needed legal advice but couldn't afford a lawyer. We offered free financial literacy classes. We taught people how to read contracts. We taught them how to protect themselves. I worked there every day. I didn't sit in a high-rise office. I sat at the front desk. One afternoon, a young woman walked in. She looked nervous. She was wearing a cheap engagement ring. Can I help you? I asked. I heard you help with paperwork, she said. My fiancé wants me to sign something before the wedding. He says it's standard. I smiled at her. It was a genuine smile. Sit down, I said. Let's read it together. I was no longer the victim. I was the guide. A few weeks later, I visited the cemetery. The grass was green over Grandpa Henry's grave. It was a peaceful day. I knelt down in the grass. I took out a small shovel and dug a tiny hole right next to his headstone. I took my wedding ring, the diamond from Dean, out of my pocket. I dropped it into the hole. I covered it with dirt. I didn't need it. I didn't want the reminder of the betrayal. I wanted to leave it here, buried with the past. Then, I placed a laminated copy of the charter for the Henry Project on the stone. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered. "Thank you for preparing me for a storm I didn't see coming. You were right. Silence is power." I stood up and brushed the dirt off my knees. I felt light. I felt clean. I turned to walk back to my truck. I had work to do. I had a company to run. And I had a life to live on my own terms. I looked directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall one last time. They underestimated me because I was quiet. They thought silence was weakness. But I learned that if you stay quiet long enough, people will tell you exactly who they are. Have you ever stayed quiet just long enough to let someone reveal their true colors? Tell me in the comments. I read every one.